Hello, thank you guys so much for coming to this podcast today. I really appreciate it. I'm honestly really excited for this one. Indigo is building really cool things for Cardano, and I honestly don't understand it very well. It's synthetic assets on Cardano, and they're really one of the only projects doing it. And, we've had DC on the podcast before in the past, and I always learn a lot from him, so thank you for coming on again, DC. And we've also got Eric, and they're both co-founders of the Indigo Protocol. So how are you guys doing this morning?
Doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, definitely. Good. Sunny day in Austin. Beautiful.
I wish I could say the same thing here. I got pretty soaked walking in here. 10-second walk and the Florida monsoon hit me there. So real quick, can you guys briefly, explain, what led to this point, your history in the space?
Yeah, I'll let Eric go first. I feel like Big Pay, my kind of story into Cardano.
Yeah. I've been in crypto since, I guess you could say, the class of 2017. Come from a tech entrepreneurial background, so blockchain to me was fascinating. We had an event in Austin in 2021. We call it the Snowpocalypse. Essentially shut us down about 5 days. And I was already in touch with DC. DeFi on Cardano was just, really, really infancy in kind of the whole idea of it was going to be a thing. And DC was kind of pioneering, that entry into really what was and what we see now as, really what's going to be a robust DeFi ecosystem. And that 5-day power outage led me into some ideas of, how I wanted to create something DeFi on Cardano. And that was really the start of where we started, ideating Indigo, what became Indigo. We had a few different ideas. We kind of shut down the DEX idea pretty early, seeing that there was some competition already. So that was kind of the birth of Indigo, was from a funky weather storm, actually giving me no choice but to think and ideate ideas for 5 days. So.
Yeah, power outages are pretty good sometimes.
Yeah, I guess in this case.
Yeah, they get you thinking about decentralization, right? And Eric, we actually, linked up through IdeaScale, right? So this whole concept of Cardano Project Catalyst being not only a funding vehicle, but a means to connect like-minded builders, operators in the space. That's actually how we made our intro. It's also how I met my co-founder for Liquid, Florian. So yeah, a lot of really natural kind of, early days connections happen just through that grassroots movement. It's really exciting. Happy to talk more about, synthetics backed by on-chain assets and all things Indigo today.
Yeah, me as well. So for anyone that's never heard of Indigo Protocol and have also never heard of synthetic assets, they're new to all this stuff. What is the Indigo Protocol?
Yeah.
Go ahead, DC.
I think the simplest way to think about Indigo is tokenized assets on chain, right? That asset can be a stable coin, that asset can be another crypto, like say Bitcoin or Ether, or that asset can be something like a commodity or an equity, right? Stocks and these type of things. The beauty about Indigo is all of these assets that you're minting, all of these synthetic assets that our protocol allows you to essentially create, they're all backed by on-chain assets, and the main one being ADA. So you have a system where your collateral allows you to mint and maintain these synthetic positions, and it's really up to the user's imagination. If we can have an oracle that tracks the price feed for a certain commodity, asset, you name it, sometimes even statistics possibly, we can mint an asset for it in Indigo.
So you said, go ahead, EC. Sorry about that.
Well, I was going to say we have a slogan. And we've been pushing this for probably about 6 months now. And as we, have this sprint to mainnet, you're going to see it a lot more. And it's tokenize everything. That's really the aim for Indigo. If anything exists as a real world asset, we can create a synthetic of it and even get more unique and innovative with baskets of assets too. So tokenize everything is really our aim.
So you guys are talking about even stocks, right? Stocks, gold.
Yeah, so right now there are, just to be very transparent with the community and the people that are expecting those assets in the future, there's a pretty clear regulatory line with regards to those kinds of assets. So we have to be very careful, basically what the team deploys versus what the Indigo DAO will in the future possibly deploy. Very strategic, baby stepping into that full-blown tokenize everything kind of reality. So, but yeah, let your imagination go wild. I mean, the limitation is the imagination. So yes, I mean, synthetics can capture any sort of asset that exists. It's a matter of how that asset is deployed to the protocol and whitelisted. So that's basically our focus right now, is making sure that we do everything squeaky clean, not only for the protocol, the founders, the team, but for the community as well. We want to make sure that the community is basically in charge of a safe protocol.
So from the user perspective, how would they interact with Indigo? Do they essentially, log into the front end, connect their wallet, and that's what I mean by log in, and then they have essentially a list of synthetic assets that they can, swap their ADA for?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it's a collateralized debt position-based system. So, like Eric said, there's going to be a certain subset of assets that you can mint at launch, let's say stable coins and other cryptocurrencies. I'm going to build a CDP position by depositing some ADA collateral, and then I'll be able to mint up to a certain collateral ratio, some amount of that asset. And that's kind of how the system works. You do have to maintain that collateral ratio. So whether you add more collateral, whether you repay that, that asset position, it's kind of like maintaining a CDP in MakerDAO.
So I honestly am having trouble understanding this. You mentioned you have to put up this collateral. Let's say you have ADA, right? You're not just swapping it for that token. You actually have to provide it as collateral.
Right, because Indigo is not a DEX. The assets that are minted in Indigo, they do trade on DEXs freely because those are just fungible tokens on Cardano. So Indigo, it's like a three-headed beast. I always tell Eric this. You can think of it as like a bridge. You can think of it as a borrowing protocol, and you can really think of it as a stablecoin killer because, I mean, it's a tokenized everything killer, but it's a stablecoin killer specifically because you can start with that from day one. There's little price risk to minting these stablecoins because, for the most part, they're pegged to the US dollar. And I think what you're saying at that point is your system can do all these three things at once, be a CDP borrowing system, be a stablecoin protocol, essentially be a wrapped asset protocol similar to the Aneta BTCs of the world. So you've combined use cases from like a bridge like Mokameda to a wrapped asset protocol like Aneta to a borrowing protocol like MakerDAO because it's all CDP based, and you've wrapped that all into one beast called Indigo Protocol, and that's what we're building.
Yeah, and to clarify, with regards to the comparison to Aneta BTC, there is no underlying asset. There's no ownership of the underlying asset whenever you have an asset. So whereas you can redeem Aneta BTC for BTC with the asset, that's not the case. So you don't have any ownership over the underlying asset.
Yeah, there's some nuance there. Great point, you see, definitely.
So how does the protocol deal with, volatility, where we're at right now in terms of, even, stocks have been so volatile in the past few years, let alone cryptocurrency. So, how does the protocol handle the volatility?
It's we're building in what will be kind of a volatility tracker. But in the case of an MCR that is under threshold, there will be manual liquidations. So that's the only risk to the user to maintain that MCR, which will be on a per asset level. Ideally, we're working towards a dynamic MCR once our quants can figure out the formula for that, and I think that'll be a game changer for us. But at launch, it'll be 150% MCR per asset. If there's high volatility to the downside, the user can simply add more collateral to maintain their threshold, to maintain their MCR. But in the event that it's volatility in their favor, they're really just sitting in better profit position.
Okay, can you explain what MCR is?
Yeah, it's the collateral ratio in the position. So we have a minimal collateral ratio, and that's what MCR stands for. And you have to maintain that. So if I'm using ADA collateral, like Eric just said, the minimal collateral ratio will be 150%. So kind of like in MakerDAO, you deal with volatility, right? Because the price of your ADA collateral can go up and down. The price of the asset that you've minted, let's say it's Solana, it can go up and down in price, right? Yeah. So what you have to do, like Eric just said, is either add more collateral to that position, so top up your CDP with ADA, or repay your position, right? You've minted that Solana, now you need to repay that to make sure you always maintain above that MCR. So that's kind of how the system is built, basically. But similar to MakerDAO and similar to any system that's built on CDPs, liquidations is kind of the key component to deal with volatility and to deal with these changing collateral ratios.
Okay. So let's say I buy this the Solana asset that you're talking about, and I'm using that with ADA, and I'm providing that the collateral to do that. Let's say the price of Solana goes up, right? And you guys are using oracles for that price feed, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So when that goes up, and then I go to, let's say I want to sell the asset, or, in this case, withdrawing the collateral, would that be similar to selling the asset?
No.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. You're actually closing the CDP is what you're doing. So you're just closing the CDP and withdrawing the asset. So you're not necessarily selling it. You maintain the asset. You close the CDP.
Yeah, I thought you meant the I asset, like your I Solana that you minted, or your I stablecoin, whatever I asset you mint in Indigo, that's yours in your wallet, whether you're LPing on a DEX, whatever you're doing to earn yield on that. That's a token that you've minted. That's what I meant by no. Like you're not going to sell the I Solana or any I asset. You're going to either top up your ADA position with collateral, or you're going to repay that entire position if you want to entirely close out the CDP. In that case, you will need I Solana or the asset that you minted. Just same way you minted it, you have to burn it to close the CDP, essentially, right? So that's kind of how it works. But you can purchase that on a DEX. That doesn't necessarily have to be the same as what you minted. There's many different ways because these things are just fungible tokens that will trade on many DEXs to get liquidity in different I assets.
Okay. So, a user can come in and they can purchase, the I asset that is Solana. And then if it goes up, they can sell it the same way that they purchased it. So for a user that is actually providing the collateral and minting the asset, and, let's say the value of that asset that they minted goes up, and then they go back to burn the asset to withdraw the collateral that they put in. Is the value increased of the collateral that they have in there because the value of the token has gone up?
No. So think of these as two different sides, right? The value of the ADA collateral is one thing. It increases and decreases based on the price of ADA solely. Now, the value of your minted I asset, that's going to control and change your minimal collateral ratio, your ICR, your individual collateral ratio. But that's not dependent on the price of ADA, which will also impact the ICR. But you have to think of whatever this I asset that I've minted is, that's going to trade based on its own price action. We're tracking that with Oracle price feeds. Okay. Based on the ADA collateral, that's what you're using basically to maintain and have that open CDP. But these things aren't they're not intertwined. They're two kind of different concepts. We're using two different Oracle price feeds to track these things.
And I think given the price fluctuation nature of ADA, it's the exact reason why we have stablecoin options to open up to mint your I asset and open a CDP. So right now we've partnered with Ardana and with Coley for JED, so as to give our users essentially as many stablecoin options as they desire within the protocol, so as to mint an I asset, not just ADA. ADA will obviously be supported at launch, but we'll get into really having a multi-collateral asset option and whole portfolio of different collateral options as well. So that's a little bit into the future, but at least for now, we're covered with regards to having ADA support for collateral as well as stablecoin that's within the ecosystem.
So to mint the token, you're going to have to put in 150% of the value of the token, either in stablecoins or ADA, right?
Correct.
That's that 150% number?
Right.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So then those that, do mint these tokens, I'm assuming that they're, incentivized through some sort of, yield farming?
Yeah, absolutely. We have several different mechanisms too that we can talk about. So ideally what we'll see is people that want to essentially long the asset, and they will deposit that I asset in its respective stability pool, thereby receiving shares of liquidated positions. The collateral gets dispersed to all the users that we'll call stability providers within that stability pool, as well as earning Indy as yield. So the other option there also, as DC mentioned earlier, is to take their I asset and trade it on a DEX as well. So you can be a liquidity provider on any of the supported DEXs within the ecosystem and earn yield that way. So that's certainly an option for users.
And then stake the LP tokens from the DEX, right, and earn
Yep,
additional
absolutely.
yield on that. And then take the governance token from the DEX, stake that. So you have this kind of compounding cycle of yield in protocols like Indigo that are all CDP based and allow the user to take the minted debt and go provide liquidity and earn yield on that minted debt, basically. And I think a common use case is we're going to see a lot of users come with their ADA collateral and just try to mint some stablecoin, whether it's IUSDC, IUSDT, you name it. In that case, like Big Pay, you mentioned earlier about like the price fluctuations of these two different sides, the minted debt and the collateral itself, right? In that case, the user's really only worried about the fluctuation of price in the ADA collateral, right? They're not so much worried usually because, USDC and USDT, these are things that are really good at maintaining their $1 peg with the amount of liquidity that they have built out. So yeah, it makes it a lot easier for the user to only have to worry about price fluctuations on one side. But of course, Indigo is a general, modular built protocol. So you can have, ADA collateral, you can have, cryptocurrency XYZ that you've minted as an I asset. And now you're maintaining these two different sides of price fluctuation to make sure your individual collateral ratio is always above the MCR. That's how the system works.
I think one of the beautiful things that we've built within the protocol as well, for users who want to forego that kind of, CDP kind of position, they can acquire an I asset on a DEX and take the LP token from the DEX that they receive, take it to Indigo, stake it in our LP staking pools. So earn Indy that way. So I think that's kind of a beautiful collaborative design with the whole ecosystem. You don't have to have a CDP just to take advantage of different yield mechanisms within the protocol. You can simply acquire an I asset and the LP token from a DEX, take it straight to Indigo and deposit it in Indigo that way and earn yield. So that's really awesome to us.
Yeah, great point. Absolutely. I mean, think about DAI, right? MakerDAO, like how many people actually own CDPs in MakerDAO versus how many people hold DAI in their wallet, right? Obviously, the latter number is way bigger because everyone just uses DAI to lend it and to earn yield on it, but not actually that many people have like vaults in MakerDAO. So the same case in Indigo, there's minters who are going to own those CDPs, but then there's also folks who are just going to take the I asset off of DEX, earn yield on it in many different ways. Yeah.
So does the I asset serve as the LP token? Let's say I want to, go to the contract, provide ADA or a stable coin as collateral. Do I get LP tokens and the I asset, or do I simply just get the I asset?
You simply get the I asset, but you can consider it the LP token in our system. It's really not, because it's a different type of setup than a DEX. But I know where you're going with this. So I would say yes, in this case, you can consider the I asset the LP token. Really what the I asset is though, it's minted debt in the system, right? You're saying you've backed, your on-chain assets, whether it's ADA or some stable coin like, DUSD, and now you're minting some position in our system. That position is now in your wallet. You can go LP on a DEX. You can go provide I asset / ADA on a DEX, and then take those LP tokens and, like Eric said, stake them in Indigo. But the I asset really is, its own individual piece. It's kind of like the core product of Indigo. Being able to mint these different I assets.
Okay. So in the I asset is what you're going to use to farm. Can you tell me a little bit more about, you mentioned this, once you actually mint the I asset, you can then put that into a contract. And you said it was kind of a stable asset contract?
Yeah,
a stability pool.
Stability pool, okay.
Yeah. The stability pool is basically a mechanism in Indigo to have the assets needed for liquidation pooled in a single contract, and allows the protocol to automate the entire liquidation process using those I assets that have been deposited. What's the incentive for depositing my I assets in the stability pool? Of course, it's yield, right? I'm earning yield every time the liquidation occurs because there's profit in the system that's being redistributed to all of the stability pool stakers for a given I asset. So I want to stake my IUSDC in the US dollar coin stability pool. Okay, every time a liquidation happens, that's the system repaying an IUSDC position, I'm earning some profit. I'm also earning Indy just for doing that entire position. Now I can take my Indy and I can stake that in the system as well, and so forth, right? And everything that Indy basically yields for me, I can stake that as well. So that's kind of how the stability pool mechanism works, and that's why it's going to be so, I guess, attractive to users to stake in that in the early days, and hopefully in the long term as well.
Starting to make sense to me now. I appreciate you guys. Where are we at in terms of development?
Wow. We've been building. We actually just had our 1 year. So we've been building on Cardano for 1 year now. We recognized March 30th as that date. So we're really far along in development. We did just make a change, so I'm excited to announce that we're officially working with M Labs now. I think a lot of people in the ecosystem recognize M Labs as really the top tier Haskell firm. Few other competitors, I'm sure. And we've had really brilliant engineers working on Indigo, but really to align us for this sprint to mainnet and proper support thereafter, we're excited to be working with M Labs now. Great brand, great firm, really brilliant developers there. So we're actually going to be releasing our private testnet at the end of April. So that kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to our development readiness. So we're really, really close.
That's awesome. Is this private testnet? Is it really private, or are users going to be able to actually participate in this and do some testing for you guys, or is that going to be at a public testnet in the future?
We will have a public testnet in the future. Our private testnet is a few of our core team members are handling the participants of that. And it's really just intended to work out some bugs, expose some things before we actually release it for a public testnet. So public testnet will happen immediately following the private testnet.
Awesome. So I think this is an important question for the audience. It's a little off topic, but Dewayne, he's also the founder of Liquid Finance. One thing I'm curious about is collaboration between the two protocols, and the second thing is for a new user that really doesn't understand DeFi and the direction that we're heading on Cardano, what they hear is, you provide tokens as yield, and you get paid for providing the ADA as liquidity, and then you farm the token. There's some similarities there. What are the key differences?
Yeah, I think for one, absolutely, Indigo and Liquid already have a partnership in place for iAsset stablecoin specifically to be assets supported in the Liquid protocol. So users from Indigo who mint, or users who take their ADA and purchase an stablecoin on a DEX can then lend it out on Liquid for yield, right? Like I said, before, Indigo is a three-headed beast. It combines CDP borrowing, it combines stablecoins, and this concept of wrapped assets, albeit just for price action, into one system. Liquid's trying to be very specific in that it's compound or Aave. It's lending and borrowing at a generalized level. It uses interest rate curves. It uses different parameters within those curves to basically price the supply and borrow rate each block. Indigo's is definitely a very different beast in synthetics. It's more akin to something like Synthetics, the protocol in Ethereum, or Mirror, the protocol in Terra. Again, different aims and goals, but very composable in the products that we can come together and build when you combine an iAsset and the ability to earn yield on that in a money market protocol. How I'm able to work on both these things, I think it's just having an awesome team on both sides. On the Indigo side, headed by Eric, and the fabulous product guys that we have on our team, the awesome engineers that we have, and now joining forces with M Labs. And Liquid has been working with M Labs since basically we got our first Catalyst money. So back basically a year ago this time, or really late February of last year. So that's really how we make it happen.
Awesome.
Yeah, just like DC said, it's having a good team around you. I couldn't even maintain without all the proper folks that we've brought on with Indigo. I think we're about 10 people now, 10 core team members, I think. So we've grown really quickly, organically. As you may or may not know, we're self-funded. So we've had a couple proposals that have been funded in Catalyst, but we have not done any raises with VCs or anything like that, and will not until we go to launch. So, or post-launch specifically. So, yeah, organically building from the ground up and have a great team. I give kudos to our CTO, product lead, product research, everybody really. It's 100% a team effort, and I know it sounds maybe cliche, but it's so true for Indigo.
Well, I don't really think it's cliche. When you guys are building what you're building, there's no way you could have done it all on your own. I'm curious though about regulation specifically in the United States. Will users in the United States be able to participate with these synthetic assets on Indigo?
Absolutely. Yeah. As far as regulation, we always encourage the user to understand their specific regulation in their specific jurisdiction. We can't give, very careful not to give financial advice and tax advice. You understand the game. So we're open and fair game for everybody. But the user, it's upon them to understand what their specific regulations are in their jurisdiction.
Okay. Yeah, and it's important to note too, like community governance will take over as soon as Indigo launches on mainnet. At that point, the DAO makes the decisions, right? Not Indigo Labs, not Eric or myself or the CTO. It's really up to the community to decide where the protocol moves and how it moves forward. I think a part of that, really comes with ownership at the individual level. Each individual Indy token holder makes up that DAO and kind of decides how we move the system forward.
Yeah, I was really speaking more from, the user perspective and, those individuals in the United States, but I appreciate your response.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I also heard that, there's, something new on Cardano called the Cardano DeFi Alliance. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, happy to. There was a clear need to bring a meeting of the minds together, a league of companies, if you will. We were all running into development hurdles last year. I think those are pretty well known in the ecosystem. So we started the idea of really the alliance, but bringing together all the brilliant developers and teams that we have in this ecosystem and to accomplish more, power in numbers, right? I come from a technology background and have participated in similar alliances, and they were just very powerful, very beneficial. So we put the DeFi Alliance together, founded the Cardano DeFi Alliance, really went public with it in December. It got picked up pretty quickly, but a couple of months prior to that, we were already collaborating privately amongst what were the inaugural members of the DeFi Alliance. And we're really excited for not just, the innovations that we can accomplish together, but really the future. I foresee the DeFi Alliance working with other alliances and other ecosystems so as to really benefit the industry as a whole, not just our siloed Cardano community, but also just to further adoptance of DeFi from an industry level standpoint.
Yeah, I was really happy to see the CDA launch, and I really hope the collaboration in Cardano continues because we kind of are all in this together. A good reminder of that for me was when Wing Riders found the issue in the MinSwap DEX. They went over and they looked through their code, and there was $100 million saved potentially there, from collaboration. So I'm really happy that you guys started the CDA, and I'm looking forward to the future of the collaboration and the value that's derived from that.
Yeah, kudos to Eric and Ben Hart for leading that whole effort as co-chairs. Really done a phenomenal job. And I was just looking at the open source projects that all the CDA kind of member teams are working on, and wow, it's like a whole page and a half, 2 pages of different Plutus open source off-chain wallet infrastructure projects that teams are building. So yeah, really exciting times.
Yeah, on that point, that's a great point you bring up, is that list of open source projects that we're all working on. We're actually going to have a release of all of those projects just in a publication to show the community what we're all involved in building and developing. And some of those tools are already released and some are in development, but still just to show everyone kind of what the members are working on before we get into any, deliverables with regards to our collaboration with IOG. So.
Awesome. So you guys, gave me the pleasure of being able to announce the next airdrop criteria for the Indigo token. For those who've never participated in airdrop, with all of these new protocols that are launching on Cardano, what many of them like to do is give out, a little bit of the initial supply to new users that are showing interest, that are paying attention. And today we have another special one for you. So what is the next criteria for the Indigo airdrop?
Great question. We've told everybody for the whole time that we've had this airdrop announcement live, come in, learn some basic Indigo knowledge. And engage with the team. We're very active in our Discord. I think one of the more active teams, I would like to say. If you've got a question for us, we answer, and we've put so much information, automated information on our Discord. Be hard not to learn some basic Indigo knowledge. So what we've done is we've built a landing page where users will go and connect their Discord ID to, or show that their Discord and their forum IDs rather, our accounts are linked. Provide their wallet address. Obviously, we have to know where to drop Indy to. But then there's going to be, I think it's like an 8-question quiz is what the guys have put together. Maybe 9 or 10 questions, but not beyond that. But and these aren't overly difficult questions, but you have to have some basic level understanding of Indigo. For example, is Indigo a synthetic asset protocol, a DEX, those kinds of things, right?
So is this podcast a good prereq for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically to show that we actually care about the level of education our users are gaining. So we'll have a quiz basically that we will release, provide the link to UPay, and you can advertise that obviously to your users. And yeah, so we're really excited about that. We just show that we truly do care about the level of understanding people have. So for the airdrop hunters that are out there, I'm sure they're going to have to come and learn a little bit more, but that's what we want. We want people to come in. Our community has grown so quickly, and I think we've gotten a lot of people that came in, probably were, just focused on an airdrop, and now they're loyal followers of the protocol because they've learned what we intend to do and what our vision is and what our aim is. And we've had people openly express that. And that's really the exciting part about it. And that sort of organic growth in the community, people that were not really intending to really take part in this for the long haul, then they are now. So we really truly do care. So that's why we want to put this quiz together. Some people might be boo-birds about that. That's fair. But, we really want it to be something that's not as just a gimme. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is free minted tokens. So.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't want it, then just don't do the quiz,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And everybody has that option as well. So I'm sure there's going to be some attrition there. We had a really phenomenal turnout with regards to our governance vote around this initial token distribution. It was our first governance vote. And we had 6,395 people register to cast a vote in our governance forum. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal engagement for a first governance forum kind of environment, man. So I'm sure there's going to be some attrition from there. People that we're trying to duplicate accounts or something like that maybe can't submit the form twice. So
can you tell us more about that first governance proposal?
Yeah, absolutely. So our original plan with regards to this airdrop was to wait about a year into mainnet and do an airdrop. That the governance would still decide through governance. Our users would decide, say, out of maybe the list of 5 dexes, what their favorite dex was, what the most attractive dex was to airdrop to. Figured that was that 1 year period, it made sense to us in the early days of ideating this because it's clear there's going to be some dex wars on Cardano, and we wanted that landscape. I think there's 20 different dexes building or something. So we wanted that landscape to kind of the dust to settle a little bit over that 1 year period, and then leave it up to our community to vote. So what we did though, when we really exposed that we have that airdrop built in the plans, we just got a lot of feedback from people that were interested for us to push that airdrop up. And we really still wanted to keep the spirit of governance alive. And so we opened up a vote to the community and said, you know what, we've fielded your suggestions. We understand airdrops are popular. Liquids was immensely successful. And I think that was driving a lot of the inquiries into whether or not we would really push ours up. And that's fair. So we put a proposal together after taking all the suggestions and discussing with our legal team what was really viable for us. Everybody does things a little differently. We chose to go a certain direction, and that vote was to really proceed with what we call the initial token distribution that includes the airdrop at launch, or keep it as planned 1 year into launch. And it was pretty unanimous. I think we had 92% of people vote for the token distribution, the airdrop, to happen at launch. And that does a lot of great things for us, right? So it really spreads the liquidity out of Indy, gets it into a lot of different hands, bootstraps governance, bootstraps liquidity. So an at launch distribution, we're thrilled with that result.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Big Pay, you asked about regulatory and compliance things earlier. And the reason I hit on like community governance is because when you look at how, especially US regulators come at DeFi protocols, once community governance has taken over, once you have DAO driven decision making and you have, a ton of indie holders both proposing, voting on, debating through the discourse and through Discord on different, actions that the, protocol might take forward, parameters, whitelisted assets, you name it, then you truly have a decentralized system from an outside looking in perspective, from a regulator standpoint, truly. So yeah, community governance and like, that whole like DAO driven model where it's really kind of like bottom up grassroots, kind of not too different than what we're trying to do now in Project Catalyst on Cardano. Like that's going to be a huge difference maker when the regulators truly start coming to look at, what are the, top unicorn protocols on Cardano that we need to look at for compliance and regulatory things. So yeah.
I think something that really adds to the decentralization of Indigo is your choice of not selling the tokens to VCs prior. Specifically the Fair token launch there.
Right.
And, using, one of Cardano's biggest tools, Project Catalyst, to, raise funds to build out the protocol, I think is really going to prove to be, highly valuable long term.
Yeah, agreed. It's the road less traveled. Believe me, it's as the person who's solely responsible for funding the project, it's taken a lot of sacrifice, and commitment, but it's worth it for what we aim to be, and kind of the impact and disruption that will cause in the landscape out there. So I wouldn't have changed anything. And sure, we've had a lot of VC interest, but we committed to a fair launch, and we're going to honor that. So full steam ahead. We will proceed with productive conversations to raise capital once we're launched. That's always been the plan too, as well. That's no surprise to our users who have been paying attention since day one. We just decided not to do that pre-launch. Really give a fair, for an equality and fairness standpoint that we stand by. It would be counterintuitive to that if we did a raise prior to and sold out a bunch of token to VC. So just not the model we went. And for anybody else who went a different model, that's your decision and power to you. We just decided to do things a little differently.
So moving forward, is there going to be, some sort of treasury where, users can vote on, what value is going to, what developer to continue the protocol?
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll all be done. The DAO Treasury will be on chain. 5%, actually, total is 8% of total supply will be allocated to the Treasury, and at launch, an instant unlock of 5% of total supply Indy in the Treasury. So that Treasury is there for, DC kind of alluded to Catalyst earlier. It's a similar model. That's an on-chain governance, on-chain Treasury. Any awarded proposals that get passed will be funded through the Indigo DAO Treasury.
Awesome. I really appreciate your response there.
Yep.
Both of your teams are actually coming to the Rare Bloom later this year. Are there any projects or, or people in the Cardano community that you're excited to meet?
Yeah,
everyone.
Everyone.
Honestly, everybody. I mean, I know so many names and have met so many people, but to meet everybody in person and be back in Denver. I lived in Denver for 17 years. I started my career in Denver, so it's home away from home for me. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I heard this guy named Big Pay is going to be there, so I can't wait to meet him.
I know it's been, we still haven't met each other, man. I've been to so many Miami meetups and I drive 3 hours. I'm like, but DC can't make it.
Yeah, no, I'll be at the next one, no doubt. We'll see each other in a couple
next
days.
week, actually.
Yeah.
Next Friday. I'm looking forward to it, man. We do have a couple community questions. We'll get those out of the way. Someone asked, will we see dividends on Indigo? That's all the question was. So my assumption was, will we see stock dividends for stocks? I think that's what they were asking.
So no, like Eric said earlier, like Indigo assets allow you to capture the price action and the price movements of an individual, asset that we're tracking through oracles, but not the underlying. So any underlying rights like stock voting or stock dividends or anything like that from a company, no, you're not going to access that. And neither will you get that through like synthetics or mirror. Like that's not what these DeFi protocols, these synthetic asset protocols are built for.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where would that money even come from?
Right.
What is protocol-owned liquidity?
Great question. It's the topic of the day, right? In crypto and DeFi 2.0, means is a balance sheet that the protocol has, and the assets are somehow growing. Activities where you're collecting fees on a DEX, ability to own an asset like ADA, or to own say the ADA Indy LP token on the top two, and collect the fees from those and continually grow its treasury. Call own liquidity, and the concepts being floated out there now are kind of like things you can do to continuously scale your protocol's own liquidity instead of paying for renters and liquidity through like yield farming activities.
And it's something we're considering too. I look at the long-term vision of Indigo and the Treasury, and to diversify those assets. Obviously, I think we've seen Do Kwon really out there publicizing $10 billion or so worth of Bitcoin Treasury for the Luna Foundation Group or Foundation Guard, whatever they're called. But still, it's something that we're definitely going to be considering, is diversifying our treasury with Bitcoin and other assets as well.
It's I think that's really cool. And I mean, it makes sense, as we move towards, this idea of decentralized protocols, they're going to need a diversified allocation of assets, to
absolutely
fund the future.
Think of any investor. Do they sit in, maybe in crypto they do, but do most traditional investing, do you sit in one investment? No, you diversify your portfolio. Everybody knows that. You diversify. So why would we as a company not do the very same thing? Just because we're in crypto and we want to be ADA maxis? I get it. But
I was going to say, you are speaking to the ADA community.
Yeah, totally. And I totally get that. And we will have ADA as a supported asset in the treasury. But, we really need to get more creative in that regard and to really diversify. It's about protecting the long-term really health of the company, and the protocol.
Yeah, I actually think protocol owned liquidity, diversification is one beast, and that's kind of more treasury management. But when I talk about protocol owned liquidity, I mean like actually growing through revenue streams the assets held in the treasury. So their ADA is actually perfect because you can just stake it, and there's a risk-free 4% yield on it. Or LP tokens are great because you can just earn the fees from a DEX. But yeah, I don't mean like just diversifying into Bitcoin or something like what Do Kwon is doing.
Yeah,
I truly mean like having a revenue stream that the treasury owns itself, and that the users in the community through indie proposal voting can decide what to do with that revenue that just got generated by the treasury. That's what I mean by protocol and liquidity.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. Well, really, that's all my questions for today and all the community questions. Is there anything in this podcast that we didn't cover that you need to get out there?
I mean, probably, talk about what our actual launch timeframe looks like right now. And I'll tell you, we're full steam ahead looking to late July or early August for launch. I know it's a question that comes up, and it's a very fair, appropriate question. So everybody knows that we're working hard to get Indigo mainnet around that timeframe.
Awesome. Anything from you, DC?
No, all set. Can't wait to meet you in a couple of days.
Yeah,
this is great.
Me as well. Well, gentlemen, this was an awesome podcast. I really learned a lot. I love podcasts like this where I leave a little bit smarter, and hopefully the viewers enjoy it as well. If you guys made it this far in the video, you got to admit you liked it. Click that like button, comment down below. If you made it till the end, comment Indigo Protocol down below. That'll show us all that you made it till the end, and we do appreciate that. Also, subscribe, notification bell, all. A lot of great videos coming out this week. Appreciate you guys. Hope you have a good rest of your week.
Hey, bud. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Bye, man.